From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. For this special episode, we'll take a look at equipment maintenance, but more specifically, trailer efficiency. As the industry works to minimize greenhouse gas emissions, we often focus on how the tractors are affected. However, the trailers also play a part in energy efficiency. Although the federal courts ruled that trailer manufacturers are not mandated to follow greenhouse gas regulations, that doesn't mean that they're ignoring them. In fact, it's been a primary focus. So in this episode, we'll ask, how are fleets and manufacturers handling equipment maintenance and trailer efficiency? To answer that question, we'll speak with Taki Darakos, Vice President of Vehicle Maintenance and Fleet for Pitt, Ohio. But first, we'll hear from Dustin Smith, Chief Strategy Officer at Wabash National. RoadSigns spoke with both men as part of Transport Topics magazine event series, Engage. Here are the interviews. Welcome to the show, Dustin.
Thank you, Mike. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you on. As I mentioned before, with the federal court's ruling, that doesn't necessarily require, that's not saying that manufacturers are neglecting energy efficiency. So I just want to ask you before we get into things, how has Wabash approached trailer efficiency more organically versus having to do it via a mandate?
Sure, Mike. Yeah, thanks again. It's an honor to be able to contribute to the conversation today. And you're absolutely correct. The federal court's ruling on greenhouse gas, or at least phase 2, that ruling did not alter Wabash's strategy in any way whatsoever. At Wabash, our focus has always been on efficiency, and I would say certainly well before sustainability, or the word sustainability, really became inserted inside of most companies' strategies over the last couple years. And I think due to investments that we've been making over the years in terms of R&D resources, both in-house, capital investments, and even partnering with really some brilliant technology firms, Wabash enjoys providing, for example, the lightest standard dry van in the market. And our plans reflect we only intend to really extend that leadership position across the very large first to final mile product portfolio that we have. So I share in that context because light weighting has really been a substantial focus of ours across all of our products, providing lighter products for our customers to haul freight on the road. We have a lot of other technologies underway to greatly improve energy conservation as it relates to cold chain or refrigerated products. So the technology we have that we're launching in our refrigerated product lines is so thermally superior that we actually envision a zero emission reefer someday going down the road. And it's only possible because the thermal efficiency that we can provide our customers. And to your question, Wabash has invested in all of these types of solutions because they make our customers more successful, not necessarily because of a mandate that forced us to.
One of the things you touched upon, Dustin, and I've been reading a lot, and I'm mostly certain that the industry has been reading a lot about is just that thermal efficiency that you were touching upon, and just the work with reefers and refrigerated trailers and as such. I understand that there's a lot of R&D that goes into that, and as well as the other things you're doing concerning trailer efficiency. What type of areas have you seen the greatest and most promising savings in? And what type of feedback have you received from your customers?
Sure. Yeah, great question, Mike. It kind of makes me think about the whole adage of, you're ultimately judged but through the eyes of your customer, right? So no matter what you offer the marketplace, you might think it's the greatest technology or the greatest benefits or features you've ever set your eyes on. But if the customers don't think so, they don't agree with you, you find yourself out of business. I think Wabash has really been trying to attack on 3 fronts. And the 3 fronts we tend to find ourselves coming back to is weight, thermal efficiency, and asset life. And if we think about all 3 of those together, obviously, if you're only thinking about dry freight, then thermal efficiency may not be all that interesting to you. But we think of those 3 together, regardless of the product line we're focusing on improving. And when you substantially improve all 3 of these together, you fundamentally start changing the operating model and even the business model for your customers. So I want to try to, bring that to life a little bit and give you an example. Anytime you can provide a quick and immediate operating cost benefit, you get your customers' attention. Save some fuel, haul a little more freight. Those are always good things. The customers appreciate that clearly. But I believe what can separate yourself from the herd is when you really focus on a system level, how you can generate a real mean shift in value creation for your customer. And I'd say for us, when we focus on weight of the product, the thermal efficiency of the product, and its asset life, or maybe durability might be a little, a simpler way of thinking about it. The more durable the product often leads to a better asset life. Those three things have been our common voice of the customer elements for quite some time. But to my attack it on a system level comment, we've been working to generate solutions that work together to solve all three of those at once. They actually work together or build off of each other to provide a lighter weight, more thermally efficient solution that has ultimately a longer asset life itself. And if you can couple all those together like that with the ultimate end game of providing solutions that have sustainably longer asset lives compared to the next best alternative, when you do that, you provide your customers the option of either A, extending their life cycle, their trading life cycle, or they can simply run their equipment longer and generate higher residual values, all while enjoying a lower operating cost environment. So that's really been Wabash's focus. And I think that's important because sometimes it takes a little bit more time to get that entire value proposition out into the customer's hands versus, I'll save you a pound here, I'll save you a gallon of fuel there. Those are great things. But if you can really try to couple all this together and provide your customer a product that will run 10 years instead of 7.5, that fundamentally changes the business model for everybody.
Dustin, you touched upon just the buying in from the customer and the first two with the weight and the thermal efficiency. I would believe that really hits home with those customers that deal in that. I mean, I'm sure that all of your customers deal in that weight capacity aspect of things. Has it been hard getting that buy-in? I mean, I wouldn't say hard, but just sort of if you could explain the challenges of getting that buy-in of promoting energy and savings, versus having that a pound here, a gallon here savings.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think, like you said, hard's probably not the right phrase, right? But it's. I think it's in how you provide that benefit to the customer where they become interested. So if I can save, the customer 100 pounds through a pretty simple or conventional solution, then that's not hard at all to explain. The confidence level is very high. And, the translation or the value benefit gets translated kind of depending on the customer's, let's say, application. If you go to solve that problem through a substantially different type of solution or a different type of technology, and in our case, in refrigerated front, how we've been working for, I guess now going on 8 years, what we have been referring to as our molded structural composites technology that goes into our refrigerated trailers that we just rebranded as EcoNext. That solution is so different than everything that people are used to in terms of how the product is designed, the technology behind it, and everything else. There's a little bit of a trust but verify element that goes into that. And I think Wabash enjoys having a high quality brand with a high trust factor that allows us to continue pursuing solutions like this. But again, when you're really going through, I mentioned earlier, that mean shift improvement and value proposition, not just this slow iterative solution where every year I might get a couple pounds or a couple percentages better. But, when you pursue technology that's 25% better than the next best alternative, that often requires breakthrough change. And oftentimes breakthrough change is not met with such open arms and confidence because, these are our customers, money and hard-earned funds that they need to figure out where to invest. So that solution takes time and it takes testing and it takes a lot of back and forth with the customer to continue getting them more and more familiar with technology like that. And at the end of the day, I think it's simply, even though we're a B2B type of an industry, it's still a lot of people to people type conversations where you really want your customers and your suppliers to be along the journey with you. And that obviously increases the comfort level as you work together to solve these problems in a really big way.
From time to time, an issue commands so much of the industry's attention that it requires a deeper dive, a resource readers can turn to, a transport topic special report. We're turning our attention to another big issue, electrification, and the key factors that will drive this industry trend. In every case, we're working to provide our readers with information, analysis, and clarity on key issues confronting fleets. One comprehensive resource packed with insights that can give you the edge. Transport Topics invites you to learn more about our special reports. To reserve your copy of the latest special report, visit ttn.ws/electrification.
With you were just mentioning just being a B2B company and you're dealing in the industry that you're dealing in, it still comes down to people. And I guess we can talk about this for for quite some time. But I want to switch gears, Dustin, to one of the problems that's affecting all industries, no matter where you're at, and that's the supply chain bottleneck. So just as a manufacturer, one of your main concerns, I would figure, would be that bottleneck situation that your company is dealing with, like any other company. So what are your efforts? Where are your efforts concerning that? How are you mitigating that issue?
Well, Mike, I think first I'll be humble enough to not try to claim that we've cracked the code on this, or we had the golden ticket that we'll unveil to the world today. It's been a really hard 12 to 18 months in that regards, and yeah, I mean, I think Wabash has done some pretty interesting things that we had done well before the pandemic and working through them. But yeah, it's been a challenge nonetheless, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, or even if you're in a service-based company, obviously, versus a product-based industry. I've used the phrase: it doesn't matter what you want or when you want it. You're likely going to wait longer than you desire, and when you finally get it, you're probably going to pay more than you want, right? And that's kind of in the world we've been living in, all of us as consumers and business leaders for the last 12 months or so. I think I think about the whole supply chain event, and I've read as many articles as you have on all of it. A couple things stick out to me that I think universally we've learned over this last, let's say, again, 18 months or so. And the first one that comes to mind, and again, I'm not going to tell you anything original. I've read it all myself too. It's that whole concept of just-in-time inventory versus just-in-case inventory, right? So now people are starting to use JIT versus JIC. And naturally now you win if you have inventory just in case, right? And I think as you think through that, super efficient lean inventory is amazing until it isn't, right? Until it doesn't work. And that's what we've all found ourselves in, since, let's say, the late 2020, as the world quickly turned back on all the way through today. And when everyone is on JIT, or when the whole world basically operates on just-in-time inventory, and we all experience the same massive hiccup, it takes a really long time to get healthy again. I think it's as simple as that. And how different businesses now, as we reflect, right, as different businesses model the benefits of ultra lean inventory, which does a lot of things for people, right? It's a waste eliminator. It reduces your working capital, all these really important things that businesses focus on to operate efficiently. They have to weigh that benefit, perhaps with some level of contingency inventory, and weighing that back and forth is for each business to decide. I don't think any of us can ever plan effectively for a global pandemic, right? So I think they're lying to you if they said they had the playbook, right, that they pulled off the shelf. But we all, as business leaders, should strive to kind of learn from any events that we all go through and try to say, well, how can we improve the business moving forward? And I think that's where now, if you were to count the amount of buzzwords being used, you hear a lot of things about resiliency now, right? Supply chain resiliency, or resilient supply chains. No one talked about that 3 years ago, right? They talked about lean and ultra efficient inventory and low working capital. So I think we can all reflect upon that to some extent. I do believe one thing that Wabash has done that has helped us mitigate through a lot of this. And again, mitigate's also a relative phrase. It just means suffered perhaps less than someone else, right? Because we have truly worked through this. But it was a decision that Wabash made years ago, probably I'm thinking now, probably 5 years ago or longer, where we really began a reshoring process of a lot of our supply chain, reshoring back to North America. And we enjoy very strong supplier relationships. We do try to continue lengthening our strategic relationships with our supply base. And the great majority of our supply comes from North America. So again, without trying to overcomplicate anything, I think we can all, it didn't insulate us perfectly, but I think we can all agree that, an example I use is the shorter the garden hose is, the quicker it fills back up with water, right? And our supply chain on purpose has been shortened as we reshort a lot of our supply base. And perhaps that has us just a smidge ahead of the others in that regards. I think the other aspect, I think you hit people wise. When I think about supply chain, right, it's what's right in front of you is, the parts you may not have to get started. But I think the other thing we've learned here inside Wabash is, it may sound cliche, but people are everything. And, with the exception of a few special causes, and an example of a special cause might be like the winter storm in Texas last February that shut down a lot of the oil and gas, and everything just went dark and came back on later. With the exception of some of those special causes, most of our supply chain woes all led to one common cause. We were all trying to hire people at the same time. And that became the biggest and the quickest ramp up in any of our histories. And this industry is a cyclical industry. I've been in it for 15 years, so I know what it looks like. And this was one of the steepest ramp ups we've ever seen. It's hard to solve the same problem when you're all trying to solve it the same way. So when we're all trying to hire more and more people, and we've all learned that people are not an infinite resource, people are very finite, and how we manage people had us, I think, more than ever reflecting in our conference rooms about how we focus on retention for the long term. It's easy to go out and hire hundreds of people. It's not so easy hiring less people because you're attriting out less, right? And that was really a lot of the conversations I think we found ourselves reflecting upon inside our own four walls, which is the better you are at retaining your talented workforce, perhaps the easier that next ramp up can be in the future.
Oh yeah, one of the things that you've been touching upon is that people aspect, and we can definitely talk about that. But I think that would be another episode that we'll have to dedicate toward. Dustin, before I get you out of here, I want to touch upon some of the things that we talked about. That being trailer innovation. And we touched upon just reefer innovations, and we can discuss electrification as well. But just kind of having an eye toward the future. Where do you see the trailer market in the next 5 to 10 years? And where are the pain points, and where are there encouraging signs?
Sure. I think, again, I just mentioned I've been part of the industry now for 15 years. And I think what's very exciting right now is I do believe the next 10 years will be more exciting than the last 20. And I think we're getting into a world that maybe which did predates me, but going back to kind of the deregulation era of our trucking industry was a very, very exciting time. And I think we're approaching a similar decade where there's just going to be so much happening all at once. It's going to be a special time to be part of it as a business leader in our industry. At Wabash, we have a purpose of changing how the world reaches you. And we believe that at Wabash. And I think at the core of that for us, for the next, you mentioned 5 to 10 years, I think sustainability and ESG are things that are here to stay. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's a good thing. So we're focused on really bringing some of the most sustainable solutions to our customers in the industries we serve over that 5 to 10 year period. When you think about some of the things, try to predict in the future, kind of as you're asking, I think electrification absolutely is coming. I think autonomy is coming as well. I think electrification will be here well before autonomous trucking is here. So I think electrification is coming faster than a lot of us want to believe as well. So I think that's the biggest thing. If I were to fast forward 5 to 10 years, I think we'll look back and be just amazed at how quickly such an industry so large and even fragmented as ours is will have this massive push towards electrification. I think it'll start in the smaller classes and work its way up. So I think it'll start in the class, 2, 3, 4, and it'll work its way up as battery technology and battery range all continues to improve. And I think what's important for us as trailer and other type of OEMs is this is not a problem just for the tractor guys to solve. I think it's easy for a lot of us, and maybe even a few years ago, we thought, well, electrification's on the tractor guys, us trailer and truck body and, other manufacturers don't have to worry about it. Don't believe that's the case. We have to continue understanding what this will do to the industry and how we help our customers solve those problems. And I think that kind of plays into the other thing that's on my mind about the future is the pace of change is faster than any of us want to admit to. The pace of change is so drastic now. That's why I think it's such an exciting time to be part of this industry. We must break our norms and go faster. For Wabash, that means often go find it rather than make it. And I use that in a technology sense. If we want to go farther and faster, sometimes you have to go outside your own four walls and seek out the technology. Find somebody to partner with that has that technology so you can incorporate it into your business solution in order to help your customers move further and move faster. And I think we're in such an incredibly nimble marketplace right now with advancements in e-commerce. I think home delivery, the final mile, these will all be things we have to try to figure out. There is no optimal solution set yet for final mile. If you buy your groceries online and have them delivered to your home, how do they arrive there, right? Is it an employee driving their Toyota Camry to your driveway still? And would you dare venture that that's the optimal solution 10 years from now? I don't think it is, right? So it's such an exciting time. We have to keep listening to our customers. Our customers are having to put up with this shifting dynamic. And the quicker we are trying to get a seat with them and really understand their problems almost as quickly as they do, so we can work to find solutions for them, I think is what will ultimately allow Wabash to live its purpose, which again is to change how the world reaches you.
We've been speaking with Dustin Smith, Chief Strategy Officer of Wabash National. Dustin, it was a pleasure having you on this very special episode of RoadSigns and Engage. Thank you for your very unique perspective on trailer efficiency, and we'll love to have you on RoadSigns in the future.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the time. Take care.
In times like these, it's crucial to stay informed. Transport Topics is offering all the information you need to make business decisions in these unprecedented times. And in the wake of the many event cancellations and group gatherings, TT ensures a virtual way to consume business content and conversation. To join the conversation and stay ahead of the news, follow Transport Topics on all social outlets or by visiting ttn.ws/stay informed.
For our next guest on RoadSigns, we have Taki Darakos, Vice President, Vehicle Maintenance and Fleet Services for Pitt, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Taki.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you on. We've been discussing trailer efficiency in this episode, and we had the trailer manufacturer's perspective of things, and we're here to get the fleet perspective from you. And my first question, trailer manufacturers, they're dealing in energy efficiency, and it's also a partnership with the fleets. For your work at Pitt, Ohio, could you just describe your work with OEM partners when it comes to just efficiency, when it comes to things like monitoring idling and tire and air pressure?
So we're very early on in this. We actually just went through and retrofit our fleet over the last 6.5 months with telematics, and we're in the crawl, walk, run type of approach from a project standpoint. We retrofitted our entire trailer fleet and have started to see benefits in terms of having visibility of where our assets are. And then we're also piloting some technology to look at um, internal temperatures as well as um, cargo sensing type of technology. On the idling side, we primarily look at that from a power standpoint. So all of our trucks and tractors are outfitted with ELDs, and we monitor that through our telematics provider and work closely with the operations team to kind of keep idling down as low as we can from an operations standpoint, Mike.
Well, you had mentioned the crawl, walk, and run approach to things, and so I mean I imagine that you had very positive success. I mean, what are some of the hurdles involved? I mean, since you were saying it was a crawl, walk, and run. I mean, what are some of the hurdles that you have to get from crawling to ultimately running?
Well, I think the first part, I mean, just to go back and work through, there's a lot of telematics providers in the space from a trailer tracking technology standpoint. So, understanding who those players are and the pros and cons, and having them come in and meet with our team, which included, representatives from operations and maintenance and IT. It took some time. So to walk through that whole procurement process, sourcing process, to get to the point where we got the units on hand, that we made an actual decision to move with a technology partner and move forward, that took a little bit of time. And then I would say, within Pitt, Ohio, we do a lot of what we do in terms of maintaining the fleet. We will use our own internal um, maintenance team. So we have a team of about 120 technicians spread throughout our network. And rather than outsourcing, and outsourcing was an option, we chose to do the retrofit of the technology in house. So we had to balance that with all of the regular demands of keeping the equipment up and operational, as well as the bringing this new technology into the fold. And then I think, as we got further along from a project standpoint, and we had more telematics installed and more density in the fleet, beginning to leverage the canned reports that were available, as well as working through some customization that could help us in our operation was really important. So I think that's where we've been. We just recently wrapped this up about 3 weeks ago, so it's really, really fresh. And in terms of the other add-on technology pieces that we could incorporate into our fleet, right now it's an understand what all these other pieces can give us. And you hit on a couple points in terms of the air pressures, really important. As an LTL fleet, we go into some customer yards that aren't the friendliest for tires. So, it has always been a challenge and a work in progress in keeping those issues to a minimum. What we've done is we've incorporated pressure monitoring into our trailers, so they come outfitted with all of our builds over the last 3 years have incorporated technology that will keep the air pressure up in those tires till the units get home, unless there's a big gaping hole. And then we've also made a real strong concerted effort from a maintenance team to make sure that we are making air pressure checks with calibrated air gauges part of everything that we do. I do think the future would be to take advantage of the telematics, the sensors that can be added on to automate some of this. We're just not there yet. Our biggest focus was let's really get a good grasp on where our equipment is, make sure that we're maintaining it, and then we're going to start to layer in some of this other technology as we move forward. Hopefully that helps.
Well, hopefully it does. I know you probably. I mean, you have a lot of work on your hands, considering the tire monitoring systems with TPMS and ATIS, especially with trailer efficiency. I mean, that's a lot to take care of, and that's probably a big bulk of that task when you consider the trailer capacity and the weight that's involved when carrying carrying those big loads. One of the things also, Taki, that I wanted to talk about as well, and just kind of overall, it's just your fleet maintenance management style. Just kind of in your position at Pitt, Ohio, what are some of those issues concerning fleet maintenance that kind of keeps you up at night?
I think having the people, having the right people in place. We're an organization, Mike, that I would say is in a way a little bit of old school maintenance. I mean, we do still run equipment out to tractors 1,000,000 miles plus, and straight trucks may have 450,000 miles on them when we pull them out of service. So with that comes a lot more need for knowledgeable technicians at the floor level. So you have to have those people in place to really know how to do the repairs right, and can help kind of bring those folks around them, raise them up, and bring them along as well. I think it's an interesting place and time because there's such a rapid acceleration of technology that puts more and more pressure on the maintenance organizations to keep up. I mean, we're a very safety conscious organization. So we're outfitted with all the collision mitigation and lane departure and outward facing cameras. And that's all great to invest in the technology. But if you're not maintaining it and making sure that it's working, you're really defeating the investment, the purpose of what you were trying to accomplish in the first place. So I think it starts with people. We believe strongly, we're always there for you as our moniker for Pitt, Ohio. And I think it really does start with our technicians and our drivers and our dock workers. So finding those good folks that are going to grow with you and progress, that's probably my number one thing that keeps me up at night.
Taki, the way you had described that answer, it was just kind of a symphony of technology and people. And I kind of want to split these next two questions up. Just this first one, just being about concentrating on the people part of it, and it's just and you had mentioned the technicians as well. And as you know, there's been quite a struggle for all industry. I mean, for everyone in the industry to get the right qualified technician into the fold. So, I mean, knowing that, what's your philosophy toward building a work culture that brings in not only brings in the right technicians, but motivates them to keep them there and be a part of Pitt, Ohio?
I think that's a good question, Mike. I would say that we have a strong culture where there are many folks that, we're a 42-year-old company and we still have people that are 41 years and 35 years and 30 years and 20 years with us. I think the challenge is as those folks turn the page and they start to retire, is backfilling. They understood what it took to get to this point. So maintaining that culture and that drive and that focus, it's got to be instilled in the next generation. Recently, it took about 2 years. We just recently started a high school VOTEC apprentice program. So we've partnered with a couple high school technical programs to bring folks in and have them work side by side with our technicians in our shops. And, I think that's part of the future. And I say part because it's not going to fill all of our needs. I don't think we can, as fleets nationwide, I don't think we can count on stealing technicians away from each other. And we have to start to shift the mindset and how folks view the industry. I would say I was an example of this. I mean, 21 years ago, I had folks say, why would you get into trucking and transportation? And, you have so many other options. And it's been a really fulfilling career. So whether somebody wants to stay on the floor and continue to work as a technician and get involved in the latest and greatest technology. It could be battery electric vehicles or autonomous vehicles. That's one thing. But if they also have plans to maybe one day get off of the floor and grow into other roles within the organization, it's very real and very possible here at Pitt, Ohio. And I have a number of folks on my management team that they started out 25 and 30 years ago, turning wrenches and making the trucks and the tractors and the trailers go. And, when they weren't busy doing services, they were delivering freight. And now they're in roles where they really impact the organization at a higher level. But I would say the last piece is just giving everyone a voice. So when we spec equipment, when we change things from a maintenance plan direction, we will include our lead technicians. We'll have dialogue with our techs to make sure that we're really not missing anything, so that they're included in the dialogue.
You were just mentioning having employees at one stage at the fleet turning wrenches, but as you know, we're now in an age where the turning of a wrench is now the press of a button on the tablet for for some to acquire data that's going on under the hood. So just kind of leading into that, how do you use technology in your management software to regulate that your tech shop, the tech shops more efficient?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would say it's like data overrun from a fleet perspective these days. But over the last 3 years, we've been working on improving how we look at data and what data do we go after. So we have a gentleman on my group that's more of a data scientist, and he manages our maintenance software database, but he also does a lot of reporting and extracting of information. So he's come a long way in terms of how to manipulate the data, and he was not a on the floor turn wrenches type of person. So he's a longtime Pitt, Ohio employee, but he's learned on the fly in terms of what's important, what the team needs to look at, how they want to look at it. And then we've also gotten really engaged with our OEM partners. So we've pulled in a lot of the remote diagnostics. We've set up some APIs so where the information comes into a portal, we can kind of digest it, we can understand it. We've built a little bit of support for our maintenance team in terms of a couple technical advisors that they came off the floor. They're very current in terms of the fleet challenges and the issues, but they're working closely with our OEM maintenance service partners to identify real needs and issues. So you've got the data coming in. We're using analytical tools to kind of break it down into digestible bites that we can actually act on. And then we've got our tech team that is helping our shops and maintenance workforce correct the problems and fix the issues. So, in a perfect world, I would like to say we know that a problem is going to happen before it happens. We're not quite there yet, but we're a lot further ahead than we have been in recent times.
Well, if you can predict the future, then your job will be very rewardful. So there you have it. So in explaining in the acquirement of the data that you receive when your technicians are under the hood, they detect the problem, and then it's time to repair that problem, or just do regular maintenance to some of the tractors, and that requires getting parts. And as you know, and not just this industry, but every industry has been going through some sort of supply chain shortage. And I don't think it would be any different in your office when you're dealing with those types of things. But if you are, are you encountering any challenges related to procuring aftermarket parts? And if so, what have you done? What are the steps you have taken to try to assuage those problems?
We've had a lot of challenges, Mike. 2021 was not for the faint of heart when it came to parts acquisition and keeping the fleet rolling. We've been very blessed with having a good trickle of new equipment coming in on a steady basis that could help keep specific locations up and operating. We've had some trucks and tractors that maybe have been waiting on a part 2 to 3 months. If I were a small carrier and I didn't have a flow of new equipment coming in, that would make things really, really difficult because, it's hard to find rental equipment. 2022 is going to be really challenging for new build slots, and many of the OEs have put fleets on allocation because they just can't service everybody with all of their needs. We've increased our inventory, so from a parts standpoint, we've probably increased 20 to 25% in terms of the value of the inventory, and that's to smooth out the bumps and the issues that we've come into. We also did some pre-buying. So in this economy, we've seen like a rapid escalation of certain parts where we've got some warehousing space and we've pre-bought maybe 6 months or 9 months of inventory to hold fast on pricing and to level things out. So I'm very fortunate. I have a team of 8 folks that their whole mission is to make sure that our shops and technicians have the right parts at the right time, at the right price to put on the equipment. They've done a good job. It's not perfect, but we've done a good job of weathering 2021. But I would say we were just in a shop meeting earlier today, and our parts manager, Jason, was in on the meeting. And I said, are things getting better or worse? And he said, it's not getting any better right now, Taki. So we're making do with what we have and trying to be resourceful. We're probably buying parts from suppliers that we really never leveraged or used before, but it's important in this environment.
Do you feel? You're just saying you're dealing with suppliers that you have never dealt before. Would you think that would be a situation where you could probably expand those particular relationships where during a regular time that you weren't able to have those relationships? Do you think there's some type of I guess business benefit to having those new relationships?
I think there's absolutely a benefit to it. I think it has opened our eyes up to some secondary suppliers. I would say we realized how important those primary relationships were, and if you were maybe a fleet or a buyer that really jumped from one supplier to the next based solely on price, this was the environment that would hurt you because the at least the partners that we're working with, they will go out of their way to supply us. We've been longstanding customers, and they will jump through great hoops to help us and keep us whole and keep us right. I think if I were kind of a here today, gone tomorrow type of partner, I'm not sure that they would have been over to that level or that level of degree to support us or help us. I know we're a big organization, and I feel sometimes we have a target on our back as far as Pitt, Ohio. They're a good source of revenue, and but I think this year has showed how important those relationships and being in sync and having regular dialogue with your suppliers is to being successful.
Yeah, you guys are a big carrier in this country. You're part of our top 100 for hire for our top 100 list. So you guys are up there. Taki, before we let you go, I just want to ask you one last question. I'm going to ask you to put your analyst hat on. So here we go. Where do you envision fleet maintenance and the repair segment of the industry for commercial trucks within the 5 to 10 years? Or what do you see it's coming? Do you see any hurdles or even any encouraging signs?
I think there's a lot of good signs. One, I would say my team has been really excited to see, like with our VOTEC apprentice program, just a new generation of folks coming into the industry. And I think there may have been some labeling in terms of, hey, that generation is not really, they're not willing to kind of get themselves dirty. And I think we see that that's not really the case. It's kind of a label. I think that the challenge is going to be how quickly the technology is accelerating, and just the amount of folks in our space that are in the maintenance space that are retiring and leaving the industry. I think there's, there can be some challenges in terms of knowledge gaps to keep things moving. You do not make a good technician or a good maintenance manager overnight, and it does take time. And I think that's probably one of the things that's going to be I mean, there's many things, but that's one of them that's going to be a challenge today. I mean, you can do really well as a technician on the floor, and you can probably get as many hours as you want, and that used to be the feeder for folks to come into the maintenance management world. And people are less inclined to want to take a after hours call, or to sometimes have death by email. So, many folks would just rather work on equipment, and, I'll take care of the truck or the trailer and move on, and I don't have to deal with the other parts of it. But it's going to be a very dynamic time. I mean, when you talk about electrification, when you talk about autonomous vehicles, I think the landscape has the potential to be really different from what we know today.
We've been speaking with Taki Darakos, Vice President of Vehicle Maintenance and Fleet Services for Pitt, Ohio. And Taki, I understand with the alarms and the alerts that have been going off during this interview, I understand you're a very busy man in the Pitt, Ohio offices. So we'll leave you to do your work. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original question. How are fleets and manufacturers handling equipment maintenance and trailer efficiency? As we heard from our guests, staying efficient is vital to success. Plus, following an organic process towards safer emission levels keeps their companies engaged with their customer base while becoming greener throughout the process. The one connecting factor, however, is the issue that has complicated all efforts between many industries, and that's the supply chain. This ongoing problem that reared its ugly head in the past year continues to be a thorn in the side of manufacturers and trucking companies. Getting parts from point A to point B has been a challenge, but for fleet maintenance shops, that problem has been exacerbated by a technician shortage that's short on new talent and the lack of experienced workers. Fortunately, the path toward a solution involves communication along every fleet and manufacturer's supply lines. However, this problem persists. Watch this space. If you enjoyed this episode of RoadSigns, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the RoadSigns team, or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Freeze. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of RoadSigns. Until then, I'm Michael Freeze. Thank you for listening.